In order to migrate datasets, just select Migrate Datasets from the activity list at left, and then enter the destination Salesforce org where you want to move the data into over here on the right, and then click the Next button. So Migrate Datasets does a quick metadata capture of the destination org so that you can turn triggers and workflows and things like that off if you want to. That's the first screen that you'll see. And then you enter the Migrate Dataset interface. So over here on the left, you can select an existing dataset. We just have one, the archive dataset we just created. And then you'll see the parent objects and the children objects over here in the middle. And you can see all of the different records that they have. Or you can view the fields that were loaded. And you'll see some of these fields are inactive. That's because this custom object does not exist on the destination. Also, if you see that some of your data sets are inactive, that's because they contain objects that don't exist on the destination. Click the Next button and you'll go to the Matching Fields interface. This is extremely powerful. So for example, we have our parent object account and the children objects for contact and opportunity. Well, how do we find the accounts on the destination org? Well, we just use the account name. But account names can be duplicated. So you might want to add an additional criteria to search for. For example, you might want to use the zip code. So now we're finding the accounts on the destination by both the zip code and the name. So that gives you a much more accurate match. If you have any external IDs, those are great to match against. If you're moving data into the same org, you can actually just use the ID object, and that will definitely match that destination object. You'll also see the external references down here below. So for example, opportunities have a reference to a price book. Well, how do you hook up the correct price books on the destination org? And so this is a place that you can select extra fields to make those matches. So for example, you might want to match users by name and email to be sure that they sync up to the destination. All right, after you've selected the matching fields that you want to use, click the Next button, and you can select fields that you want to scramble. So for example, let's say we're moving this data into a sandbox or a developer org, and we really don't need accurate financial information or credit card numbers or something like that in the destination org. So for example, I might not want annual revenue to show up, and I can move that into the list of scrambled fields. And that way developers can still work with this information, but they don't have access to the actual data behind it. All right, next step is you can deactivate any workflow rules, validation rules, Apex triggers, or flows in the destination org before and after you copy the data. So this will reduce a lot of the errors that often happen in data migrations because triggers fire or workflows start getting kicked off. And if you don't want that to happen, you can deactivate them on this screen. The last screen is Migrate Datasets. So you've got some really powerful options here. And the defaults are pretty good, so you probably should just try the defaults, but if you need to make some changes, you can. You can stop after any error, or you continue after an error. Now, one nice thing that Monarch will do for you is, if there are some errors, it will write them out to a log file, and it'll also automatically create a recovery data set with just the objects that didn't migrate, so that you can focus on them. So it really makes it easy to get all of the objects across. And there are often maybe a few errors, for example, duplicate accounts or other little problems like that. And so you may have to do some cleanup work after a big migration. You can choose to truncate fields that don't match the field length or to allow field truncation. So what that means is if you have a field that's 200 characters on on the source, but is only 100 characters on the destination, it'll truncate that data automatically, or it won't, depending on what you choose. You can log all your migration errors, or you can log the errors and the successes. And then you can also choose serial or parallel processing. Serial processing will reduce some errors with the bulk data API in some situations. Lastly, you have the upsert batch size. If you think the batches that you're running are really too big, then you can get a smaller number here and make sure that they don't become too large. And so that's really about it. you can see your parent and children objects here and choose Migrate Datasets to move this information into the destination org. So we've moved the accounts, and now we're moving the contacts. We can see the accounts were successfully moved, and there's the log file. Now it moves the opportunities. Now it's connecting all of the external relationships in phase 2. And just like that, we moved about 4,000 accounts and 400 contacts, 300 opportunities, and we reconnected all of the external references for those objects on the destination org. If you have any troubles, you can open your error logs, and you'll see your log files. And also remember, if there are any errors, Monarch will automatically create a new data set that lets you retry just the things that failed. All right, that's about it for migrating data sets.